My name is Wayne Davis. I live in Colorado. I have been in the AMC hobby for decades. Just turned 70 just a couple of days ago. My first experience with AMC was my cousin, who was a year and a half or so older than I was. His folks bought him a brand new 69 AMX, Castilian gray, red stripes, 390 4-speed for his high school graduation. And of course, who wouldn't fall in love with that? And I did. AMC Performance, the Javelins and AMXs, and I've had a couple of Rebels and through the years. But a number of years ago, I got the bug on the historic Trans Am. I had an opportunity to buy this car 12 years ago now. And the car was a street-driven kind of tribute car. So the paint that you see on the car and the Javelin, Sunoco, all that stuff was done on the car when I got it. You'll notice the rear wheel wells here are radiused to match the original 71 car that Penske ran. That was done on the car when I bought it. And the guy that I bought the car just did a fantastic job. So the day I got the car, I started tearing it down and built a Trans Am, had a Trans Am spec, de-stroked 360 down to 304. It's dry sump. Engine's built by Barry Allen. So if you know Barry Allen, or at least the reputation that Barry has for high performance AMC engines, pretty wild. It's an 8,000 RPM engine. It'll run 8,000 RPMs all day long. Of course, dry sump. And I want to show you a picture of the exhaust system, because the exhaust system, I tried real hard to replicate the exhaust system on the real car. So it's kind of an interesting design. Let's see here. That's the dry sump that you can see. Those are the 3 scavenge lines. It's not really an oil pan because no oil is held in the pan. It's held in the tank that you can see up in here. The tank is up in the wheel well. And I did that too to replicate the original car, because the Trans Am spec of the day required that you had to have the dry sump tank had to be forward of the firewall. That was quite a challenge to do that, but anyways, did that. So you have 4 primaries on each side. On the left bank, 4 primaries on the right bank. So 2 primaries come down to a collector. The other 2 primaries come down to a different collector. So you have 4 collectors on the car, and you can see that there. And then each one of the collectors, the collector joins, and then it goes out the side. So it's got a really unique sound. It sounds just like the original Trans Am cars. I'm upgrading the power steering box to put a very quick ratio box in it. My next big project is to build a full floater rear end. The Penske Donahue Javelins ran AMC 20s, but they were converted to a full floater. So that's my next project. And that's a little bit of a challenge because I've never done that before. So I may end up having to have somebody do that for me. This is the brake booster. So I replicated the design from the Penske, the Donahue design in the Trans Am car. So there's 2 master cylinders. The rear master cylinder goes to the back unboosted. The front master comes out of the master cylinder, goes to this inline booster, which is a Porsche part, and then comes out of there, splits, and then goes to your front brake. So only the front brakes are boosted, and that's the vacuum tank for it there. So anyway, there's just a couple of pictures of the car.
What a cool car. And Wayne, do you still have the Orange Crush as well?
I do. I've had that car for 25 years.
And what other AMCs do you have these days?
That's it.
You got rid of all the big bad AMXs?
The place that you came out and visited me, Tom, where I had the shop.
Franktown.
Yeah, it was in Franktown, Colorado. So I retired. I'm unretired now, but I retired in 2015. So my wife and I decided to downsize. I didn't need the acreage anymore. And so we sold that. I bought a home on a couple of acres and got a much smaller shop. So I just didn't have the room for the cars anymore. And, to be honest with you, I don't drive these cars that much, and I've only got 2 of them, so when I had 8 or 9 of them, that was that was too many.
Oh, you had that many. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a big bed blue AMX, a big bed green AMX, a big bed orange AMX. No, wait a minute. I had a big bad orange AMX, but not in the period of time that we're talking about here. I had that years ago.
You had that
Um,
red Mark Donahue Javelin. Was that red on red?
yeah, that was red on red leather. I had a mustard yellow 71 Javelin AMX. Um,
A silver one. Didn't you build a silver hump
yeah,
fender Javelin at one point?
yeah, that was that got coined the silver bullet, that car.
Okay, cool.
So I had that. I sold that too when I moved out here. My son and I just built.
Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron and I built. In fact, I got some pictures of. We built our 69. This is the 69 we built with him last year. We
Oh, that's beautiful.
finished it a year ago.
Dennis, could you relate when Wayne said he was unretired?
Yes, it is a crazy life.
Are you unretired as well? As well?
Yeah, I am unretired, working 60 hours a week when I thought I'd go back to 35, 40 hours a week. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Aaron's AMX.
Wow, I've got a 69 AMX Big Bad Orange as well.
You know, this car came from California, and I don't know where.
Is it a 4-speed?
No, it's an automatic.
Oh, okay, because Tim Burton brought one from California out to Colorado.
Yeah, this one is from Jeremy Fritz, up in the Sacramento area is where Aaron got it.
And so he had relatively recently passed away.
Well, I think Jeremy got it from somebody who had just passed away. I'm pretty sure this is the one he got, because I remember when Aaron came out, because he parked his trailer at my house.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
He bought this. The guy that owned this car and passed away, Aaron bought it from his daughter.
Okay, maybe it didn't come from Jeremy. I thought it always did.
This was at a Good Guys show.
There's a wonderful article in the newest issue of the Good Guys magazine about a hump-fendered Javelin. It's blue, owned by a 25-year-old guy that I bumped into at the Grand National Roadster Show yesterday.
So there's Asif. We've never talked before, but we've emailed each other back and forth.
Wayne, yeah. Well, we have talked, but it was 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
Kenosha. You had Orange Crush there, and I had come in I was living in New York, and I actually in California, and I'd flown out for a couple of days, and I ran into you and Aaron. We were all much younger then, and yeah, I remember, yeah, just spending a little bit of time with you. At some point, we were back at your hotel, and you had your trailer there. Yeah, but that was the first time that I met you guys. And then I was just sort of aware through the forums over the years when you ended up buying the tribute car from, was the guy's name Steve or Scott? Or
It was Steve Stahl.
yeah, yep.
I don't know what he's kind of disappeared. I don't know where he is anymore, but
Hey, Asif, welcome to this. This is Stan Kelly.
Hey Stan, good to see you again.
Yeah, I know. It's nice seeing you too.
Yeah.
so Asif, we were just talking about you're building a Matador.
Well, it's kind of built. I'm trying to get it a little bit further along, but it is a car that I don't know if anybody knows the name Adam Tarr.
Yeah, Adam's a good friend. Lives about 15 minutes from me here.
Okay,
Adam's
yes.
been very kind to me over the years.
Yeah.
Adam's a wonderful guy.
Yeah, so Adam and I also have just, through the hobby, known each other for a long time and talk semi-regularly. And years and years and years ago, probably, I don't know, 8 years now, somebody on the AMC forum was talking about building a Matador NASCAR tribute. And Aaron, because somehow he knows about every old race car that somebody's got squirreled away, posted, why don't you just start with this one? And there was a picture of this yellow Matador that was just in a lean-to, under a lean-to somewhere. Old race. It was already a race car. Had a cage in it and everything. And I resisted for a number of weeks. I was waiting for the original poster to maybe buy it. He didn't buy it. Nobody moved on it. And finally I called Adam and I was like, hey, you know, can I get the info for where that car is? He gave me the guy's number, called him up. It was in Indiana, I believe. And I ended up buying it and having it shipped to California, where it sat for 6 years or something. And then I was honestly going to consider trying to sell it. And then a young guy joined our Northern California car club who was also into road racing. And I told him if he helped me put that Matador together, that he could drive it. We could share driving duties. And he ended up moving back to Minnesota, where he's from. But we spent a good 6 months wrenching on it and got it pretty far. And it's running and driving now. I actually took it to a drag and drift day at Sonoma Raceway last summer, because the drift guys do a portion of the main track. And so I used that. It was like, 3 turns or something. I wasn't drifting, but I was just able to get on track and check it out. And it basically worked, but I really want to redo the brakes before I take it out again. It's got stock front brakes on it. And I'm trying to adapt basically like a late model stock car type setup. So these big honking 2-inch spindles, that's what I had been spending a lot of time on. And then I shifted gears a few months ago. I ended up, I don't remember when the last time I was on one of these calls, but a fellow in our car club passed away early last year, and I ended up buying 4 of his cars from his wife. So I wound up in one fell swoop with 2 Gremlins, a 71 Javelin SST, and a 69 AMX. And 2 of them I've already sold on, and the 75 Gremlin, which actually had like nice paint, and he had it as an 11-second drag car, but had blown up the 401 in it. So I've got a 360 in it now, and I'm trying to sort of de-drag car it because I just want to have it be a cruiser. But yeah, let's see if I can put my hands on some.
Adam Tarr is a really interesting guy. If there's anybody that either has had or can find a very rare Trans Am, NASCAR, whatever, AMC, it will be Adam Tarr. I mean, he has had some of the rarest parts in his hands that I've ever seen. And, it's kind of, I mean, and he still has a lot of them, but, he also, I mean, some of the stuff, I mean, he's had probably enough parts in his hands to build a full blown, Indy turbo engine, that was in an Indy car with AMC.
Cars as well. He's actually bought and sold a lot of cars. Yeah.
I'd like to get him to finish one though.
Yeah, that's the trick, isn't it?
He's given me 2 cars over the years. He said, like, if you can drive out to Tombstone, Arizona this weekend, you can pick up this Javelin for free. And then on another occasion, he gave me another Javelin for free. I had to go get somewhere. But he's been very kind to me over the years.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, so that's exactly how I got it, except that the meatballs had the number 13 in them. And when I was putting this car together with my friend Andy, we had all sorts of problems with it, and he got upset one night and blamed the numbers and pulled the number 13 off the car. But other than that, cosmetically, it's as I got it, except for the wheels. These are just some street wheels I had. Currently, it's running actual leftover stock Aero. If anyone knows what the Aero 59s are, basically the old 15-inch NASCAR 15 by 9.5s with a set of American Racing 26-inch tall tires on it. But this was that drag and drift event last June, maybe, which is the only time I've really kind of gotten to drive it. It does have a 407 in it, which is what they ran. I got it as a roller, but I ended up putting 407. So it's got a 30 over 401 with Edelbrock heads. It's got a Richmond Super T-10 Plus, and then it's got the 2 seats. I wanted to be able to bring passengers with it. So it started out as a kitchen sink build. I was trying to put the least amount of money in it as possible. So I put together this 360 and just an old iron T10 that I had lying around, and ended up having a bunch of problems with the motor because it was literally like the short block out of a junkyard 360 I pulled out of a Wagoneer from our local pick and pull, and just some other odds and ends. And at the same time, I was having somebody build a 407 for another car, and I decided when I pulled the 360 out to just put the 407 in to this one. And when I did that, it sort of flipped the script, and then I ended up buying a new Richmond Super T-10 Plus and some other goodies for it. And now, like I said, I'm in the process of trying to adapt these late model stock car brakes on the front.
So before you joined, I was sharing my experience with a new Richmond Super T10 Plus that I bought. I end up having I sent it off to Rolltech up in Wisconsin, if you're familiar with them. And they went through it. I've got it back in the car now, so hopefully it'll be fine. But I mean, I couldn't keep it in. I could not, no matter what I did, adjusting the shifter, adjusting the shift stops, index the bell housing, did all that stuff. Couldn't keep it in third gear. I ended up sending it to Rolltech, and they basically said, Richmond's got all kinds of quality problems right now. So, and I got it during COVID. So maybe that was an issue. I don't know.
I actually had some problems with mine, but so the problem I had was like I could not get it. It was stuck in gear. So there's a brand new transmission, and it was just stuck in gear. I didn't know what was going on. I had to pull it. I had to open up the side cover, and I had to chisel one of the dog rings loose so that I could get it out of gear. Since then, though, I only ran it that one time. The other thing about it, which I probably need to do something about, but it was good enough for the one event I did, was I basically had to build my own Z-bar. And it works, but I don't know if I trust it to really hammer it on a road course. Does anybody know definitively whether a 74 Matador coupe could have been had with a T10 from the factory?
Boy, I don't know.
Definitively, I don't know, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so either. I think I've seen one that was advertised that way, but it seemed like the consensus was that they never made it. So it's a, so I couldn't say for sure. And unless somebody's got the data from 1974 full AMC build thing, we don't really know.
When I got the car, it had a Z-bar set up in it. So there was no motor in it, but it had the exhaust, came with the exhaust and the drive shaft and the, pedals and the Z-bar linkage. It was factory pieces that had been chopped up and re-welded in a whole different weird ways. And when I put a T10 back in it, I was able to hook that all up. But when I switched over to the Super T10 Plus, which I naively thought was going to be a direct swap, and it ended up being not. So none of that worked anymore, and I had to start over from scratch. And I did have all like unchopped up stock pieces, the little engine side mount and like a stock Z-bar, at least for a Javelin, and the other bits and bobs, and I could not get it to work with the stock stuff. I mean, not just, I could have maybe used the parts, but nothing lined up. There was nowhere on the frame side for it to match up to, the strut, the big strut rod bracket, which is where the hole is for the other side of the Z-bar. That was not lining up. So I ended up kind of having to do my own from scratch.
I wonder if they ever did something like they did on some of the earlier cars where like the AMXs are different enough from the American, even though they're different enough that they take the large large car cross member and those types of things. I'm wondering if like a Z-bar from like a Rebel would work.
Maybe.
Maybe it's something like that. so maybe it's subtle, but that might work.
Yeah. I
Well,
also bought
You can
a,
always do a hydraulic clutch
yes,
too.
I have the hydraulic kit from Silver Sport Transmissions, if anyone's heard of them, on the shelf, but because it's actually runs and drives right now, I'm basically worried that there's going to be some problems with that. And so I'm going to go down that road and then have a new set of problems to work through. But yeah, I might end up having to do that.
It's funny you mentioned the Z-Bar because I just ordered one from a guy in Wisconsin. He sells a lot of the parts that are needed. I want to convert my 70 Javelin from automatic to manual, and I got the pedals, and I was talking to him on the forum, and he said, I've got all the stuff you need, brand new Z-Bar and a bunch of other parts. So I mailed him a money order for, I think, $300. And as soon as it's ready, he's going to send it all to me.
Cool.
That's cool.
When you have the right parts and they're set up right, it's fine. But if you try to sort of cobble together a collection of stuff from different parts and you get different years or whatever, I haven't had luck with that. My yellow 73, I switched over to hydraulic, not a throwout bearing, an actual, slave cylinder setup. And because the mechanical linkage that I try to set up with the Z-Bar, it just never felt good. It always felt like a Rube Goldberg machine, just, this contraption of.
Let me screen share what he posted on the forum that I bid on. So his name's Jav. He's in Richfield, Wisconsin.
Mhm.
And he says he has, so this is the amcforum.com, of course. And so he mentioned in a private message that he had a bunch of parts that would help me out. And he's been studying it all. So here's the Z-Bar that you're talking about.
Yep.
What bell housing do you use with that Richmond?
Pretty sure it's a QuickTime.
Yeah, mine's a Lakewood.
Okay.
And I indexed the bell housing, which is kind of interesting with AMC because the dowel pins are hollow, right? They're not solid. So you got the bolts that go through them. So Silver Sport Transmission makes the offset dowel pins.
Yes, and I needed to do that on the Matador, and I got the right ones and did it.
Yeah. How far was it off on yours?
I can't remember exactly, but they offer, I think, maybe 3 different offsets, and the number that I'm remembering is like they're 14 thou, I think.
Yeah, it's 7, 14, and 21.
I think I did the 14.
Ask me how I know.
Well, I mean,
It sounds like you got 2 of them on the shelf.
How did you even find it? I don't remember my journey, but even finding that they did that was like hard. And
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. I stumbled on it, just Googling around, but I don't know how I found it, but I was
have it on their website at the time. You had to call them up and they're like, oh yeah, we have those.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I was, that was part of, I thought, well, maybe that's the reason this thing's popping out of gear, right? And so because I didn't initially index the bell housing, and I was out about 3 thousandths. I mean, it wasn't out much at all. If you line bore the engine, that's when you're going to have more problems associated with the bell housing, because in theory, you're changing the position of the crankshaft relative to the dowel pins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can have you be off. And so my engine was line bored, but it still wasn't off that much. And it didn't help. It still, the problem was inside the transmission.
Interesting.
At the Grand National Roadster Show yesterday, there was a pretty cool 70 Javelin. I'll just share a couple pictures.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
It was built by Darren Smith of DWS in Huntington Beach.
I'll look that up and see what spec he has on the engine.
I wonder if those rocker switches have circuit breakers built into them so you could reset them.
Hmm.
It's got a NACA duck on the dash.
Yeah, he's got an
What's
interesting.
the motor?
I didn't ask him. I talked to him for a while, but I didn't ask him the specs on the motor.
Mm-hmm.
He's got interesting floor pedals on that. Did you see the pedals?
Oh, they come up from the bottom aftermarket.
I've driven cars with those, and I
Tilton.
never could get used to them. I have Tilton pedals too, but they hang.
Mamga. Willwood.
Little tiny brakes.
So here's the guy who built the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy's 25 years old, and he built a hump fender Javelin that's in the Good Guys magazine. And this guy shows up, he's 17, and he's got a hump fender Javelin.
Wow.
So I was encouraged to see how many younger people are taking an interest in AMCs.
Mm-hmm. I was going to really quickly show you this is
Welcome, Robert. Thank you for the tip on the door panel trim. I called the guy, but haven't heard from him yet. Couldn't leave a message.
you guys seeing the spindle thing here?
Yeah, what have you been up to?
Wow.
Well, this is what I was saying for the Matador. So the spindle itself is just a 2-inch. They use them on late model stock cars, and so they have these 5x5 hubs that have 2-inch diameter, so they're not tapered. They're both full 2-inch ID bearings that the hubs ride on, and then this block at the bottom. I had a buddy, a local AMC friend of mine, who's a machinist, just make these for me. So it's just a 1-inch block. People make those like lowering plates and different things like that. It's just a 1-inch block with the bolt holes so that you can bolt it to an AMC spindle or upright, and then it's this big honking spindle snout. So this is going to let me put the big brakes I was talking about on the Matador.
So that'd be a wide 5 pattern.
It's not. It's 5x5 here. I'll show it. You can't see the spindle anymore from this angle, but I'll show this setup. Where's it? Right here. There you go. So it's this type of deal here. It's 12.19 by 1.25 thick. 5x5 stud pattern, 5/8 lug. Yeah.
Nice.
And that lets me then run that's the pattern that the NASCAR wheels are, those 15 by 9.5 Aero 59s that they used to run until they switched over to. Did they go straight to 18, or was there like a 16 or 17 inch wheel period? I don't really follow NASCAR.
Yeah.
I would follow NASCAR if it was real car racing, but it's not. So it's the WrestleMania of autosports.
Right.
Hey guys, I got a question for you. Asif and Wayne, you've built like racers, but when Tim Allen built his racer, or had it built, there was a lot of little tweaks in it, like they remove the rain gutters and they stretch out the fenders. Did you do that with your cars too?
Well, Wayne's came with, he was showing us how the rear wheel wells were radius, but they changed the shape like they did on the real cars. Mine, blue one here in my background, it's all a stock body. I rolled the front, I rolled the fender lips. That's about as much as I did, just to get a little more tire clearance. And Wayne, the blue car in my background has a 9-inch floater, like you were talking about getting for your car.
Yeah. I could do a 9-inch floater, but I'd like to keep the AMC 20. I'm trying to keep the thing as period and kind of as correct as it was to the real car. And the real car had an AMC 20 full floater in it.
Mhm.
I know where 2 or 3 AMC 20 full floaters are that Donahue used. They're on the East Coast.
In Adam's garage.
Yeah, no, it's not Adam's garage, but he bought them from Hal Lynch. If you guys know Hal Lynch, he bought the parts from Hal Lynch 35 years ago, and they've been in his garage or his basement. And they're really interesting because they're AMC 20, but they're 4 lug. And if you remember, Penske ran for a little bit of the 70 year, he ran four lugs for the purposes of being faster in the pits. And so the hubs on these are 4 lugs, which I'd love to get my hands on them, but it's like the guy is, he thinks he's sitting on $1 million. And you know, maybe he is, but he won't give me, he wants to sell them, but he won't give me a price. And it's hard to, you know, it's hard to buy something if you don't know what the price is. But the interesting, so they may probably would have to be completely rebuilt and all that. And I'm just thinking I could probably have an AMC 20 modified for a full floater, you know, and be better off. The interesting thing is that 1 or 2 of the rear ends that he has, if you've read Donahue's Unfair Advantage, he talks about how he called it, he used the term the gronked rear end. And what they did was they actually put universal joints in the hub. So they could actually get camber, adjust the camber in the rear end. And so they screwed around with that and they adjusted a camber. It made no difference in the performance or the lap times or anything like that. So they abandoned it. But the guy has those rear ends, and they were from the Trans Am series in 1970. And so this was at Barrett-Jackson last year, to 2023. So I'm sitting at a table eating an ice cream cone, and these 2 guys walked up and they asked me if I was buying or selling, and said, neither, I'm just here gawking. And, you know, well, what kind of cars? AMC. Oh, we used to work for AMC. So they're both retired. They both live in the mountains of Arizona somewhere now. The guy on the right, interestingly enough, on his phone brought up pictures of the 71 Javelin interior in prototype. So he told me that he was the lead designer that designed the 71 Javelin interior. The guy on the left was in clay. Do you like the looks of the 71, the 2nd generation Javelin? And I said, yeah, I really do. I've grown to like it even more so than the 2-seater AMX. I love the 2-seater AMX, but the 71, and particularly when you think about the Trans Am series and all that stuff, it kind of endeared me to that body style. He said, do you know how those humps on the fenders came about? I thought maybe it had something to do with, you know, a Penske influenced or a Donahue influenced design. And in Donahue's book, the only thing that he takes credit for, the rear spoiler, is his design, and the flush mounted grille on the 71. He talked about those were necessities that he pushed AMC really hard for, and he got them. So he didn't say anything about the humps on the fenders. But the guy told me, he said all the senior executives came through when they were looking at the 71 prototype car in clay, and they came through, and it did not have the humps on the fenders. These guys are bringing up old black and white pictures on their phones of stuff they did. He said, well, what happened was they went to, all these senior executives came through and they were signing off on the final iteration of what the design was going to look like. And the original, the car did not have the humps on it. So they came through, whatever. They were about half done with their tour through all the clay stuff. And then they all broke for lunch, went to lunch. Well, when they were gone to lunch, one of the young guys started screwing around through some clay. He had just bought a new Corvette, and he liked the fenders, right? It's probably a 68. He slapped some clay on there, put the humps on it. The executives came back from lunch, and lo and behold, they loved it. Therefore, that's where the design came from. The guy on the right, when he talked about the 71 interior, I love the 71 interior. It's not very functional. I mean, think about the glove box in the 71. The driver can't access it hardly, and it's a beautiful looking design. And so he talked about, they had a lot of compromises to make.
That's wonderful and fascinating that somebody is crediting the Corvette for the Humpster fenders. I'd always noticed the similarity, but I didn't know timing wise how that worked, and I totally believe it.
The lines on that car are ageless.
I wanted to show Wayne this before he disappears. A picture I'm super proud of. When I was at a Sonoma Raceway one day, Ken Epsman, who's the owner of this #2 Roy Woods car, came by and was freaking out because of my poor man's Trans Am Javelin, and invited me back to his toy box. He's got a garage at the track with 6 or 7 high-end cars, and he basically had me drive back there. And this car had a big sticker on the front of it, no oil. It was not running, but he said, do whatever you want with it, take pictures, push it around, whatever. So me and my buddy spent about half an hour in there pushing the cars around and taking different pictures of them.
Yeah,
wow,
beautiful.
That's awesome. In the year 2000, Ken Epsman was kind enough to let me place in-car cameras in several of his cars. I think he had a Camaro, he had a green Challenger, he had the Javelin, and maybe I think he had a 4th one. And Wayne, I know you have to go, but I have a video when I produced an episode of the Planet X television show in the year 2000. Some of the in-car cameras were from Ken Epsman's, and the Javelin won the race that day.
The 4th annual Chrysler Jeep Classic Speed Festival took place on the Naval Air Station North Island in San Diego, California. This exciting gathering of the country's most important vintage racers is a wonderful homage to the glories of race day past. Chrysler also displayed their Phaeton and Atlantic concept vehicles. The Speed Festival is a labor of love for the owners and drivers of these magnificent machines, and are a rare opportunity to experience the sights and sounds of auto racing history. Here with us this weekend is a diverse field of vintage racers, from early open-wheelers that traced the first American road courses to the high-performance classics of the 1950s that sparked the hot rod and performance craze in this country. Dominating the event were the muscle cars from the late 60s and early 70s Trans Am series. These 5-liter monsters are the crowd favorite, with names like Javelin, Camaro, Mustang, Firebird, and Challenger.
Hi, I'm Scott Summers here at the Chrysler Classic Speed Fest with Joe Freitas and his 1957 Corvette. Joe, can you tell us a little bit about your car?
Well, the car dates back into the early 60s when Dave McDonald raced it, and I bought it from Dave back then.
How's the car been performing so far?
I'm not going to do anything today because I hit the tire barrier yesterday and they put me on the trailer.
Did somebody push you into the tire barriers, or was it driver error?
No, it was, I'm not going to make it, I don't make excuses. I had a little problem and went a little hard into the chicane, and so I have no one to blame but myself.
Question for you right now is, where do all these cars come from? Are they from the San Diego area, or do they come from around the United States?
There are about 3 cars that come from the San Diego area. There's about 10 cars that come from Northern California. 1 car comes from Washington State. There's a car from Oregon. There are 2 cars from New York. There's a car from Phoenix. And they're really based all over the country, and they come out here to race with us because we have the largest concentration of old Trans Am cars, the California people. This car is dynoed out at about 525 horsepower. It's a 305 cubic inch Chevrolet motor. They start with a 327 block and they put a 283 crank in it. They're a fun car to drive. 60s and early 70 muscle cars, and at that time cars were loud. Every kid in America had and wanted one. As we're older, we go back and get those cars that we couldn't have when we were kids.
Excellent race out there today. How do you feel the car performed out there?
Car performed flawlessly. However, the driver made a mistake. I was doing very well until I missed a shift toward the end. And yeah, the tires, I overheated them and they started going away, so I had to slow down and cool them off and then get them back again. A good car won, so it's okay.
Oh no, not this again. Just get in the car and don't say a word. Just sit there, don't say a word. Please. I don't want to play this game today. Things used to be good.
To make reality of imagination. To make reality of
so that
imagination.
people have time to think.
I'm going to show you my other one. For a while there, I was trying to
Oh, that's nice.
get myself a picture with all the real Trans Am cars. So I would go to test days at Sonoma, and every now and then it'd be like, oh my God, they're here. Somehow or another, I never ended up on track with them. Like they used to split the test days into half days. Like this guy's the day that Steven Sorensen was here with this #1 car, he was getting ready for the Monterey Historics, and the guy who is like, he had a crew chief or something there, and he basically said he's going to go out, he's going to do one lap, and if everything's fine with the car, he's going to come in and put it back in the trailer. And that's exactly what he did. When I was building this car,
Oh,
everyone
you got your
was,
tattoo in the bottom. I know that's your arm.
yes, yes, that's my little watermark. Everybody was expecting me, of course, to do a red, white, and blue car. So it was kind of like, what if Penske hadn't jumped on the red, white, and blue bandwagon when he came over to AMC, but he'd stuck with his Sunoco colors. And I just sort of adapted it. I have it's a little bit of Roy Woods Racing in terms of like the reverse T, which my yellow street Javelin has, and then but done with the Sunoco blue and yellow. So I just had this idea. I shared just quickly my yellow street Javelin, which was the first car that kind of borrowed that Roy Woods striping, and the blue car is kind of that, but with blue and yellow instead of yellow and black.
Ah, okay. How's your beautiful red 70 AMX coming along, Robert?
It's finished painted. I can share some photos if you want.
Yeah. What do you guys say? Let's look at Robert's pictures. It's a pretty nice car he's working on. He bought it from Mark Fletcher.
The hood flipped up on me on the freeway.
Oh, you were driving it?
Yeah, it was.
You're
like,
already driving it. Wow. Okay.
It was like 2 weeks ago. What happened was, I mean, this car's been kind of like a challenge in a sense. Let me move some things out of the way. So you can see here where the hood flipped up here, and it bent these corners here on the hood. Let me see if I can pull this in. And then it dented both fenders. So here's the repair. So it turned this back right here, this corner. So the hood flipped up, the springs flew off the freeway. I was doing about 65. It's the first time I had it on the freeway. And the hood latch didn't latch. And it was faulty. When you push it all the way down, there's an adjustment on the hook that's on the hood itself that needed to be adjusted. So it actually would bottom out farther. But these are just pictures of the hood. And let me share this with you first. So here's a video of the car.
Well, it looks good there. I'm glad you've been driving it.
Saturday, January 13th. First time on the road now, really. I'm going to be going down to Mission Bay for my grandson's 8th birthday party. Just wanted to take from video just showing the AMX. It's got probably 1 mile on it. Drove it from the shop straight home, and I've been putting all the trim on it, put all the side markers on it, AMX emblem, stuck in a new glove box, and just been cleaning it up, cleaned all the glass. Still got to do the steering wheel. I have it already done, it's restored. Just want to do an overall on the car. See the row bars in there? Kind of That's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, I did. So how long has it been since you bought the car and now you've driven it?
Correct. I bought it on September 9th.
Wow, that was fast. You're really quick.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I bought it from this gentleman here, Mark Butcher. I'm sure you all know him. And this is what the car looked like when I bought it. It was missing over 100 pieces. The engine was just scattered in pieces.
Oh, like one of those.
They're just like somebody set something on there.
It had a fuel cell stuck in the engine compartment. It needed wheels, tires.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
He had 2 seats out of another AMX, didn't have the clam backs on it.
I think
I
a
had to
clear
buy,
coat on this.
like I said, about 100 parts that I never took
Can you tell
apart.
if that's a clear coat on top or is that single
I don't
stage?
think it is.
I think it's single stage,
I
isn't
would
it?
do a very light.
Yeah, it is
sand,
single
a clear
stage.
coat over it, and you know that have somebody fix where the wheel caught that.
Wow, 5 months. I mean, you packed a lot of work into less than a 6-month restoration.
It would have
I
been
mean, you know.
quicker if it was a complete car
And if
and
you
I
look
had
at
all the
the
parts.
sheet
It
metal,
took
like
me
right
3
there at the bottom, you
months
can
to
see
get
it's
all the
never been
parts.
damaged.
Yeah,
So I got 95% of the parts by December 20th.
I feel bad for the guy that,
Well, he passed, right?
So the car was like pretty much just, I mean, it's like only a mother would love something like this, right? You have to look through the dust and all the BS.
Well, you started with good bones. It was a rust-free car, wasn't it?
good.
Yes, it's a very solid car.
The dash?
Super solid car. No rust anywhere. A little surface rust by the leaf springs is typical.
I guess the row bars do go all the way
But
through.
it
right?
had no sails in it, no rear panels, no
They go
door
through the floor,
panels.
too, I'll see.
I didn't think it went through the floor. I think it's on top.
Yeah, thanks again for that tip. I called that guy, Adrian in Colorado, but it went to voicemail and then it said the mailbox was full, so I didn't leave a message, but maybe he has caller ID and he'll call me back.
Yeah, I'm hoping he will. He's been kind of missing. I mean, I've even reached out to him and it takes him like a week before he returns my text. So yeah, this is what the engine looked like when I bought the car from Mark. So everything was in pieces, but I mean, this stuff doesn't scare me, even though it's my first AMX or even American Motors. And then I did get the transmission, but I didn't get the linkage or the shifter at first. Took a while. And then when I got the shifter from Mark, it didn't work. So I had to get another one from Alan Tyler. And then and this is when I was toting it away. So, I mean, I didn't even know what these shifters looked like or anything. And I'm just doing all these measurements on the tranny, trying to figure everything out. So it was kind of like I went online and just took a lot of pictures. So here it is at my house.
Well, I'm glad you gave AMC a try. I know you've got a lot of other cars from pretty much all the other manufacturers, right? I mean, you've got Mopars and how many cars have you got?
18. Yeah, I think I need to come up and see your fiberglass mold that you have.
Yeah, I've got the original, what we call the Pushmobile, the Dow Corning fiberglass AMX3 body that went to the 1970 Chicago and New York auto shows. And then next to it, I have the mold that we made from it. And there were 4 replica body shells that didn't have any inner structures. It was white gel coat over a hand-laid fiberglass. One went to Sweden to our friend P.O. Wallen, and he and his son built a simple chassis just to use it as a display with wheels and tires. One went to Leon Apanas in Indiana, and I sold him a chassis as well that used Corvette C4 steering and brakes. And he's retired. He's got a shop behind his house, so he's working on that. And then Dennis, who was here in the meeting, he wanted to buy a body from me and build his own chassis. And then I have a body and what I call a second generation chassis, because it was built pretty much by the same team as the first one. Dave Ward's a crew chief of the Big Red Camaro, and he built the first one, and then his friend copied it to build the second chassis, which we use C5 Corvette steering and brakes. So there's 4 bodies in 3 different countries. You know, we're all working towards getting them going. For me, the big thing is I've been waiting for the Mendiola transaxle. So when we get that transaxle, it's really going to give me focus to work on my AMX3 replica, and I'll probably end up selling off everything else. I've got 5 production AMCs, 2 AMXs, a Javelin. Oh, I've got 3 Hornets now, but one's a parts car. So you're welcome to come up and take a look. You can see the original, the mold, and the replica. And then I've also got tooling now. When we copied the design of the first chassis to make the second chassis, a jig was created. So the biggest piece is a large table with 6 wheels. And then there's 19 pieces that attach to it that help locate each of the bars.
So that's for making the chassis out of metal is what you're talking about. But the fiberglass mold, is that one piece mold?
The mold, it's like you're making a bundt cake. So you've got the original body and you make the mold, but then when you flip the mold upside down, you build a wood structure to hold it. And it's 5 pieces. There's the bottom piece, which has, you know, the roof, the frunk, and the rear deck lid. You know, that's all together. And then there's 4 doors, 4 sides that bolt with nuts and bolts. There's like a flange in the fiberglass so that you can attach the nuts and bolts. So you've got the long sides of the vehicle from front to back, you know, where the doors are and the fenders and the quarter panels. And then you've got the front and the back, the nose,
right,
and the rear taillight panels. So each time you make one, you have to unbolt everything,
right,
take the 4 pieces off. But I had four shells made. I was jealously guarding them for years, and I didn't want to part with any of them. Well, I parted with one to P.O. because I trusted him. He's the president of the Swedish club, so I knew he wasn't going to put a stretched Fiero under it. That was my fear. I think there's a lot of press to be had from creating the first AMX3 replica, and getting, well, magazines aren't such a big thing anymore, but you know, all the online exposure nowadays is like free advertising that you don't have to pay for. And I didn't want to sell a body to somebody who would maybe have the best of intentions, but go through hard times and sell it off Craigslist and somebody else gets it. And I'd gone to the kit car shows and I saw there was so many different bodies that used a stretched Fiero as a donor. And I didn't want that to happen to us. I felt that any AMX3 replica deserved to have an AMC V8 engine that was mounted longitudinally, not transverse. Just like the real ones, you know, it had to be longitudinal and it had to be an AMC. Once somebody gets the car into the magazines and the website and they garner all that press and exposure, then it's kind of an open book at that point. If people want to put a LS in there or make it electric or, you know, whatever they want to do. But I wanted to have a good first impression because a lot of people don't know what the AMX3 is. So if there's a replica of one, I figured I owed it to the AMC community to represent it properly. And it's taken years to find really qualified people that I trust. But everybody, all four of us are running an AMC engine, and you know, there's no doubt about it.